And we're recording.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second day of the Digital Transformation in Government Conference, being held virtually for the first 3 days, and then finally in person on the hybrid moment on the 16th in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Just a quick run-up for today. We have a multitude of fantastic speakers. First, we're fortunate to have the folks from the India Railways. It's Sharat, Sahai, Mathur, and Priya, Srivastava. And excuse my pronunciation, I apologize. But they're from the Center for Railway Information Systems from the Ministry of Railways over in India. The next speaker is going to be Dr. Jay Leibovitz, who's executive in residence and professor over at Tufts University. He'll be talking about expanding the digital talent pipeline in the U.S. government. That after the coffee break, we'll have Ott Velsberg. He's going to be the Chief Data Officer of the Estonia. He's talking about building a data-driven government. That's going to be followed by Emma Okani, who's the Chief Data Officer for Employment and Social Development Canada, and she's going to be talking about managing data in a large government department. After lunch, we will have Julie Champagne, who's the Bank of Canada Chief Data Officer, and she'll be talking about the CDO leadership role in digital transformation. Then we're going to have 3 streams, and then afterwards we're going to have Eric Sweden, who's a Director of Governance and Enterprise Architecture from the National Association of State CIOs. He's going to be talking about state IMIT priorities for digital transformation. Then we'll have 3 streams: global digital transformation, government design and innovation, and data management and analytics, including Dr. James Denford from the RMC of Canada, talking about a global assessment of national AI priorities. We have Dennis Suzar from the United Nations, and he's in charge of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and he's in charge of the biannual e-government survey, and he'll be talking about the methodology that's used for that. It's not dissimilar to the index that was talked about yesterday by the World Bank. Then we'll have Stenio Fernandez from the Bank of Canada talking about digital transformation and the information value stream. Then we have Dorothy Eng talking about technology and design for the public good from Code for Canada. And then we'll have Sahar Nazami Tafreshi, and she's the Senior Director, Analytics and Insights at the Bank of Canada. And she'll be talking about how to establish an analytics strategy and practice, and basically how to kickstart the culture aspect as well as the more technical details. And that'll be followed up by Eric Balades, who's the Director of Analytics and Decision Support. And we'll be talking about data fluency at the Bank of Canada. I'll be talking about a learner-centric approach. Well, anyways, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first speakers from India Rail, Sharat Sahai Mathur and Priya Srivastava, Sharat is the Group General Manager for the Center for Information Railway Systems, CRIS. He joined India Railways as an assistant mechanical engineer in '86. Since '88, he's worked in various roles in IT in the railways. He was part of the team that set up the Computer Integrated Manufacturing Project. He's a pioneer of the factory floor networking and integration. He was also CIO for the Container Corporation of India from 1997 to 2000. And from 2002 to 2006, Sharat was Director, Computerization and Information Systems at the Ministry of Railways. Since 2006, he's worked as a general manager, a group general manager, and he's worked in areas as diverse as enterprise architecture, project portfolio management, learning and development, data center design and management, business continuity, disaster recovery, RFID, and so on and so forth. He's covered the whole range of information technology. He's got a master's in technology, degree in computing systems and infrastructure over from Palani. The second speaker that's going to be presenting with him is Priya Srivastava. She's an accomplished enterprise architect. She's got 28 years of work experience, and she's also covered a multitude of areas. She's presently head enterprise architect with the Center for Railway Information Systems, and they do rely on their enterprise architecture heavily to provide a structured way ahead for digital transformation. She has a master's of science in computer science. She's a CISA certified information systems auditor. She's TOGAF certified, and she's also practicing in the architectural modeling language called Archimate. So without further ado, Sharat and Priya, over to you. I look very much forward to your presentation. And by the way, just before we start off, anybody has questions, questions will be at the end of the presentation, and use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you very much, and I will look forward to this, to hearing what they have to say. Thank you. Sharat, Priya, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wiseman. Thank you for the kind introduction, and it is a privilege for me to be here and address this distinguished audience. Good morning to all in North America. Good afternoon, perhaps, to those in Europe, and good afternoon also to those who are there, my colleagues in India. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will be talking about how we have been driving digital transformation through our enterprise architecture effort, our enterprise architecture initiative. We have started a few years ago, and now we have reached a stage where some of the results are starting to show, but it is definitely a work in progress, and we have realized that it is an ongoing activity that will continue with the right governance in place. So I would just like to tell you about what we have done so far and what we intend to do. Indian Railways is a large organization. We are Center for Railway Information Systems. We are the IT arm, so to say, of the Indian Railways. We provide all the IT systems for Indian Railways. That is our role. We are around 1,300 strong right now, and we provide solutions for Indian Railways, which is 12 million, 1.2 million strong actually, 1.2 million employees in the Indian Railways. I wonder whether you can see that, perhaps. It is a little. So this is what Indian Railways is. Indian Railways is completely a vertically integrated railway system. I would say it is one of the few such systems that is left in the world, where the complete system, from running trains to maintaining the rolling stock, to maintaining the infrastructure, to manufacturing much of our rolling stock. That is, we manufacture our locomotives, we manufacture our coaches also. We buy some from outside, but we manufacture a large proportion of it. And it is also, we also provide all the railway services. For example, all the ticketing we do ourselves in-house, all the freight invoicing we do ourselves. So it is a very large and diversified organization, and that has been the cause of certain, that the size of the IT system is also very large. So a few of the statistics I have put here just to show the size of the organization. It is amongst the largest railway systems in the world. India is a big country, so all the figures are also large. As you can see, 68,000 kilometers of route. We have route length, and that translates into over 110,000 kilometers of track. And we have more than 7,000 stations. We have more than 7,000 freight terminals. We've done lots of passenger trains and freight trains. We have a large number of rail vehicles, locomotives, passenger coaches, freight wagons, also train sets, etc. We have very large passenger traffic, which is a little unusual for railways normally, because it's a mixed railway. We have freight traffic, which is last year we loaded more than 1,500 million tons, and we have passenger traffic also. And passenger traffic, as you can see, is very, very high. These figures are from 2019, that is before the pandemic, when the peak passenger traffic was hit. And as you can see, it is more than 8.5 billion individual passenger journeys over the year. That is more than the population of the world. And our annual revenue is about USD 27.5 billion. So it is approximately the same as, just a little more than BNSF, BNSF Railroad of the United States, and Union Pacific. They are in the same range. And Canadian National would be about half of that. Canadian National is, I think, around 13 billion USD. So we are right up there among the larger railways. And as I said, we have 1.2 million employees. Because as I said, we do everything ourselves. So maintenance of the track, we have a large complement of employees doing that. So functionally, as I described, this is basically what we do. If we see from the top left corner, all the passenger services, that is the ticketing for passengers, giving them information about the running of trains, giving them information about fares and the destinations and the journey details from their origin to their destination point. And then also the passenger terminals, that is the stations. Some of our stations, you may have seen, some of our stations are amongst the most crowded stations in the world. Mumbai area, we have got these large stations, a lot of people traveling. And we have around 7,000 stations, as I mentioned. Then we have freight services. That is the booking of freight, invoicing of freight, and delivery, booking and delivery of freight, and also freight terminal operations where the freight is loaded and unloaded. And some of the terminals are also owned by our partners, our consigners, major consignees. They have their own terminals, and then they load the trains themselves. And a lot of the loading is mechanized because we carry a lot of coal, we carry a lot of ore. And then in the center here is the train operation, which is currently mixed. Mixed train operation means that the same track is used by both freight trains as well as passenger trains. So that makes the whole operation a little more complicated than a purely passenger or a purely freight operation normally is. Of course, we have to maintain and manage the fixed infrastructure, that is the tracks, the overhead electrification equipment, the signaling, the buildings, station buildings, and other facilities. And we have to manage the rolling stock also. Rolling stock, as you know, means the locomotives, the coaches, the train sets, the wagons. Wagons are freight rail cars, so freight rail cars. And underpinning that are resources which make it all work, the human resources, the finance, and the materials that make this whole system tick. This is a little busy. This slide shows you a lot of information, but the basic, this is just to show how we started our journey towards information systems. So we started in 1967, which was amongst the earliest IT systems in Indian Railways. And we had these batch systems for inventory control, batch systems for revenue management, and then various different IT systems were put in place. They were not linked to each other, and the networking was difficult at the time in any case. And then in 1978 to 85, we developed our passenger reservation system because, as I had mentioned earlier, the number of passengers that travel in Indian Railways is very large. So a reservation system for them was very difficult to find. There was no COTS product available. So we developed our own over a period of 7 years. And then in 1985, we launched it. And that became a big hit. And that became a big showpiece also for the railways, for Indian Railways, that this is one IT system that works and has made life very easy for our passengers as well as our staff. Simultaneously, we were working on our freight system, and we had first version of it that we ran up to 97, and then the second version that really became successful. We started in 97, and then up to 2002, we developed it, and then we started to implement it, and then in phases we implemented it across. So this is showing you what were the IT systems by around 2008, 2009, when the system began to become a little complicated. And at the end of 2009, we had an IT application landscape that was very, very difficult to manage, had become difficult to control. And the first efforts that we made to try to make sense out of the madness was in 2009, when we started looking at how to link the IT applications together, because we realized that data had to flow across these applications. It could not be that one application that is looking at ticketing. We were capturing the information about the tickets, so naturally we knew how much revenue had been generated in a particular day or a particular week or month, and then that information had to move to our accounting system, which then accounting systems had started to come up. And that is when we realized that moving information across application boundaries is not as simple as it looks. And therefore, as the number of applications increased, as you can see in 2009, the green applications are those which were implemented. The lighter green ones were those that were in various stages of implementation, and they had already started to become a problem, and we could foresee that we'd run into issues if we did not address this problem. Now, in the meantime, digital transformation, when we mention, then we are looking at how digital technologies are coming together to transform the services that we are offering to our customers. So we started to assess how we can meet the customer's needs, and any new service that we now present, any new service that we now offer to our customers, it is incomplete unless there is a sizable digital component to it. That is, that there is some IT to be used, some information systems are required, because that is what the customers demand. They don't just simply demand that they should get a ticketing system. They want a ticketing system that they can access from their mobile phones. Or if we want to do some freight invoicing or offer some new freight service, then they want all that information to be available to them from their mobile phones or other access mechanisms. And they want that any of their consignments, if you offer a new service on consignments, all that information about consignment movement should be available to them through their IT systems. Many of our freight customers are large organizations themselves. So those organizations, they don't want to have a person in the middle. They don't want to have a man who will scan through the Indian railway systems and then extract information from that system. What they want is that their IT system, they also have large IT systems, their enterprise systems should just collect information from the correct information. They should collect from the Indian railway system, and then they should be able to give insights to their management automatically without manual intervention. So that has increasingly become the norm. And therefore, if you see all the priorities that Indian Railways has, better passenger experience, a bigger freight market share, because that is in the interest of not only the country, but the whole world, because services, rail services are probably the least polluting of the choices that we have. So in terms of pollution and environmental concerns, the rail services are the best. So freight market share, if it increases, it has an positive environmental impact as well. So cheaper freight services move to higher value freight traffic should move towards rail. Another new phenomenon that has occurred is that increasingly we need to create a national logistics ecosystem to bring down the effort and cost of logistics in the country. And for that, there is a lot of information interchange that happens with partner organizations. For example, road transporters for last mile, aggregators, third-party logistics personnel, organizations, ports, customs for import-export traffic, Directorate General of Foreign Trade, we have some regulatory bodies. So all of them And increasingly, all of them have IT systems with which we have to interoperate. So working with partner organizations is also now becoming a very important part of the information systems for Indian Railways. And how do you do that unless you have a programmed and a planned approach to your IT systems? Optimization is another area, because optimization of such a large system cannot be done with manual means. There's no way. And even with standard optimization techniques, it is difficult to do. So you need increasingly powerful systems, you need artificial intelligence, you need asset management. Here you need sensor-based diagnostics, better financial control, capable employees. So all of these things are basically dependent on information systems increasingly. For example, these capable employees, previously we used to have training programs in which our employees used to go to these training schools and they would get refreshed training, or they get trained on new technologies and new processes. Now, the whole thing is IT enabled, and it needs to be increasingly more IT enabled so that they can perhaps get the information on their mobile phones themselves. So that is how digital transformation of Indian Railways was conceptualized, that something has to be done. Information systems have to be made more, the information systems have to actually permeate the whole organization. And look at the needs here that we have kept here, is that customer demand for IT enabled services, improved efficiency of internal processes. Our internal processes also, with IT enablement, they become more efficient, and that increases our capacity to service more traffic, more people, more freight with the same number of resources. And then visibility across the organization is very important, because that information should be visible to all the decision makers so that they have a unified view of the organization, and then they can do effective decision making. And emerging information technologies also to be scanned to make sure that we can early on see where we can then plan to use newer information technologies that make the whole IT system much more effective. And the approach is, of course, the need is the approach has been to integrate IT systems to provide a unified IT platform and to align IT with business. This is perhaps the most important function that we want our architecture to do, is that IT should be aligned with the business's requirements. If business requires some new technology to be deployed, then we should be in a position to deploy that technology. If business wants some new processes to be implemented, we should quickly be able to implement the processes. If business wants us to interchange information and to collaborate with our partners, well, we should be available and we should be ready with it. Business as usual, of course, is not possible, and business as usual is what we had in around 2018, when we had reached a stage we found it very difficult to get an overview of our IT systems themselves. We didn't know what systems we had, how they are linked to what process in the field, and how are they linked to each other. How is data flowing through the system? What is the definition of that data? All of that was difficult to get within that jumble of systems that had come up because of ad hoc requirements. And again, increasingly, our customers, that is our internal customers, our managers, railway staff, and our customers, railway customers, that is our passengers and freight users, all of them now they expect quick deliveries. Quick deliveries in the sense that they expect that their needs should be met quickly, and the needs are changing much quicker than they used to. And then we were lagging behind. And we were also, in the meantime, duplicating effort also. So we were not doing our work on time, we were inefficient, we were duplicating effort. And we were when we needed to interchange information with the third party, then it used to be back to the drawing board kind of thing, and we had to design individual interfaces with our customers or with our partners. Standardization was a problem, software quality was a problem, and the main thing was that in the absence of a clear vision, we were continually playing catch up because we were never able to resource our systems correctly. We were never able to anticipate what the load on the system would be. Now, in the meantime, we were fortunate that the government of India had already embarked on some initiatives. They had worked on the TOGAF framework and they developed it a little further for India itself, and they created what is known as the India Enterprise Architecture Framework, which is a generic framework for development of whole of government architecture for ministries, state governments, basically government agencies. So we adopted that because that was the directive of the government of India, and we found that it meets our needs, and it also helps us to follow TOGAF's ADM. The TOGAF's architecture development method we are able to follow and still conform to Indian. So that was a big force multiplier for us to that extent. And then we created this, we called our enterprise architecture effort Vistar, which means a large area. And then we decided that we'll cover the entire Indian Railways, all the functionality of the Indian Railways. Of course, there are some bodies under the Ministry of Railways, which are, for example, consulting organizations that are associated with Indian Railways, because their work is slightly different from what the Railways does. So we've left those out. But otherwise, all the Indian Railways functions are covered under Vistar. The complexity is that, as I had mentioned before, IT landscape covers a very large variety of business processes. And there are all types of IT systems which have not been developed cohesively. They have not been developed as per a plan, really, not as per a unifying plan. So all of those have to be now consolidated in some way, and they have to be brought into sync. And in the meantime, this logistics and travel ecosystems have started to change very, very quickly. Now, they used to be a little laid back, but no longer. Every day there's a new innovation and there are new demands. And now in India today, you can get a package delivered from the southern part of the country to the northern part. Sometimes it pops up in a day and you're surprised how it has happened. So the demands are changing and the capabilities of different organizations are changing. And the railways is a very major part of that whole ecosystem. So that is another complexity, and that can only be addressed with an effective enterprise architecture. That's what we feel. Of course, technology keeps advancing. Even new emerging areas such as quantum computing, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can't ignore it. The metaverse, we don't know what's going to happen, but again, we can't ignore it. So what we did was we decomposed the entire Indian Railways into these 8 verticals. These 8 vertical segment architectures that we call them. And these are freight and parcel business, the passenger business. And then, as I said, train operations is mixed. So train operations. And then the maintenance part, rolling stock, fixed infrastructure, materials management, human resources, and finance lastly. So we decomposed that and tried to get some method in the madness. And then we tried to decompose it in a way where we could find out what is the specific value proposition that our enterprise architecture will provide, that Vistar provides. For passengers and freight customers, these are the Indian Railways customers. For them, they get integrated services and they get innovation in the products and services that are offered to them. Because as you can see on this right side, the basis of value, there you can see that why we feel that the value proposition will be met. And that is because of interoperability within and across the ecosystem and the following of open standards. Again, when we come to the top and middle management of Indian Railways, then more effective planning and improved performance monitoring they can do, because now they have a holistic view of the IT landscape. They can use data to make their decisions, comfortable in the knowledge that that data is properly sourced, and that data is likely to be correct because it has moved to a set of information systems untouched by any distortion. And of course, comfortable that the IT roadmap is aligned with their priorities. Customers, they have to focus increasingly on customers. Previously, the customers used to come on their own, and now with air and road becoming much better, then we have to focus on customers and make sure that we get the right passengers in, and of course, the right freight customers also. Then field level operations, those operators who are there in the field every day, they are running around and they are working on the system. For them, actually, what they need is that their transactions should move faster, and they should get help from the IT system that they have. For example, a person who's managing the ticketing in the train, he needs a handheld unit on which he can now get his information. He no longer can afford to depend on paper charts. So all of these services can be offered to our internal customers if we have a planned approach, if we have our architecture in place. So boundaryless flow of information across our own business verticals is important. And for the partners in the travel and logistics ecosystem, again, the ease of doing business with IR improves because they can exchange data and information much simpler, and a lot of the partnerships can be managed better because of digital interchange of information amongst them. So now I just wanted to tell you a little about how we progressed, how we took on the task of creating the enterprise architecture. As I said, we followed the TOGAF framework. The TOGAF framework, of course, has to be tailored for us, for our own. I mean, every organization has to tailor the TOGAF framework for its own purposes. And we did that. So in the preliminary phase, we were selected. That was the first step of the preliminary phase when the Railway Board decided that CRIS would create the enterprise architecture. Initially, they had planned to do it themselves because they felt that the apex body is best placed to create an enterprise architecture. But then they realized that the mechanics of doing that is difficult. So they got CRIS in, and then with the express advice that CRIS should keep them in the loop, we were given the work of creating the enterprise architecture. Of course, the benefit that CRIS has is that many of the people in CRIS are those who are seconded from the railways. So they have good domain knowledge and they keep coming and going. So that flux creates an affinity that is otherwise difficult to create. And then we got to work, we formed a team, and we got many of our team members EA certified, and we continue to increase the size of our team and get EA certified ones. It's not a very large team. Initially, we had 5 EA certified architects. Recently, we have got 4 more, and they are in the process of getting certifications. And then we hired a consultant to extend our EA capability. We realized that we don't have the capability to create such a large enterprise architecture, so we should get a consultant on board. We hired the consultant and we got some inputs from them. And now we are right now at the stage of the consulting exiting out. The consultant is exiting out and we are taking over from. Then we created a lot of these awareness sessions. We ran them to explain to our masters, that is the railways managers, what exactly EA is and what we are setting out to do. That was important for us. Initially, some of them were dismissive, but slowly they began to realize that EA is an important task and there's no other way to take on what we are planning to do. No other way to plan your IT systems in a large system, in a large organization, unless you create your own enterprise architecture. Then we created EA principles, and then we also tailored the TOGAF framework for us ourselves. Now, the approach that we had to architecture development, the approach that we followed is we followed a target first approach. We continue to follow that. A target first approach means that when we are basically aware of what we are doing right now, that is the baseline or the current state of the organization, we envisage through a visioning exercise what we want the organization to be doing in the next 5 years. Our horizon is 2030. So what are we expecting the organization to do in 2030? And the benefit that we had was there are a lot of vision exercises being done and had been done. And there was a lot of literature on what was expected out of the railways in 2030. So we adopted those visions and then we created a consolidated vision out of that. And then we were able to look at the target. So we knew what a target state is going to be. And that is the process that we continue to follow. So we set up the target based on different vision documents that we have and the visioning exercises that are done. And then we say, to reach that target, what should we do? Where are we now? What are the gaps? As you can see, the gap analysis is done that way. First, looking at the target and then looking at what we have. In case now, the gaps that we identify are not gaps in the business processes, because that we leave to the business owners. Right now, we are focused on the information systems themselves. So our gaps are, what are the information systems that are needed to support our managers? So that is what we concentrate on right now. In case during this analysis process, we identify some business process gaps, then we highlight them to the railway stakeholders. So it is not that we take unilateral action on business process gaps and then try to build IT systems to obviate those gaps. We don't. What we do is then we identify them and then we highlight them to the relevant stakeholders. Mostly they address those business process gaps and then we fill in the IT part. Because it's such a huge effort, we did not, it's not possible to take on the entire depth and breadth of the organization. So as I said, we had functionally decomposed Indian Railways into 8 business verticals. And then we have restricted it only to the higher level processes. And the planning horizon, as I said, is 2030. And we are putting in place a governance group which will keep the architecture current, because it is important to keep the architecture current. Here we are showing that the enterprise architecture hierarchy, strategic architecture flows into segment architectures. As we said, we have those 8 segments that we have identified, the 8 verticals, and then down to the capability architectures. This is how we decompose the organization. And then we move up from the capability architectures also. So it is an iterative process. This is pure TOGAP. We are following TOGAP as much as we can in the real world. So we created a vision which is based on the business value to be delivered, basically. And we, as I said, we had a lot of insights from pre-existing efforts and documents. And then we got the vision approved by our stakeholders, which is senior managers in the railway board. And then we got down to more detailing. Then we identified these 5 enterprise-wide drivers, these enterprise drivers. Now, these drivers are what we validate everything that we do. We validate it against these 5 drivers. Whatever we are recommending has to be part of one of these drivers. Either it should promote growth and sustainable growth. And sustainable here is environmental sustainability as well as financial sustainability. So it should promote growth, sustainable growth, or it should enhance user experience, or it should make our business operations more efficient, or it should contribute to safe and secure transportation. Safety, of course, as you know, and security is that passengers should feel comfortable. There should be no loss of freight in the meantime during transit. And then the 5th one is that, or it should allow us to participate much better in the national logistics or the travel ecosystem. So these 5 basic drivers, they form the essence of what we are recommending should be done for the enterprise architecture. And then out of these drivers, goals and objectives, we bounce off, as we said, that we bounce off these enterprise drivers. And then we create a high-level target business architecture we have created for each vertical. And in some verticals, we are still in the process of doing that. The freight and parcel vertical, we have gone further than others, so that we'll be describing in subsequent slides. Business architecture, of course, we have followed the capability first model, and we have identified business services and then capability heat maps. This we show you. Then, so business architecture, then application architecture, we are following that, be that the business, data, application, and technology architecture. So business services, we map to information system services. Gap analysis we do at the level of information system analysis, services to make sure that IT applications are covering all the business that we need. Technology architecture also, we create catalogs, and the catalogs then we can refer to whenever we have to create a new technology solution. The vision is to have all the IR applications on open standards and have them cloud enabled and future proofed as far as we can. So for that we try that we'll scan the technology horizon and make sure that our applications are compatible with whatever is likely to come. So freight and parcel business, this is one of the priority business use cases. This is a system that we have by and large created. I'll request Ms. Priya Srivastava to take over, and we don't have much time, so quickly.
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So, freight and parcel business, we adopted the same approach as we explained in the business and application and technology architecture, that we converted it to a capability map. We saw where are we lacking in behind. Actually, in the freight business, we are already, freight is one of our application which is actually handling a large volume of transactions, and it's a most important application because it is the main source of revenue for Indian Railways, and it is already changing. I mean, we are in the middle of a very fast changing scenario, so application is continuously being changed to meet the requirements of business. So we created a DGO diagram for it. I'll go just quickly because this is a busy slide. So what were the goals are that enhanced freight and parcel modal share, because we have the competition with railways, with road transport and air transport and waterways. So the IR modal share is coming down. So one goal was to how to enhance the modal share. Then how to improve the strategies so that we can meet this modal share and other aspects of the strategic business. And then how to improve customer focus is one of our goal, and then secure delivery of goods, as we explained in is one of our driver also. So that's how we define the DGO, and then against each of the goal, then we define the requirements. We created these models in Archi, and we are following Archimate specifications 3. So this is how we created the requirements, so that it can be then further mapped with the my capability maps and then the ISS. So maybe we can go to the next slide. So this was the target state as we through the vision document and the discussions with the stakeholders, we found that this is what the freight and parcel business is looking at. That the structured strategic planning towards growth and sustainability is one of the driver. So how to make the planning more structured, that is one aspect which is actually in an organization of the size of Indian Railways is very, very important. So this we focused ourselves on this also. Then market research and analysis and competitive pricing model is another aspect which is actually sort of a gap at the business process level also, because it has not been done. We are looking at the pricing and everything is being done internally. We are not, Indian Railways is not looking at, because we are not market driven organization. So that's how it is. So we found that as one of the gap which can be looked into a balanced mode. Then seamless first and last mile connectivity, because multimodal transportation is being taken at the level of national level. So how the freight and parcel business fit in, how to create the joint products with the ecosystem, that is one of the target state. And then booking through different channels and multiple operators, how to aggregate the demands are aggregated as of now also, but to how to optimize resources and maximize revenue, that is one of the target state wish list. And then integration with partner organizations, warehouse operators and other organizations. So that way, so this is how we created the capability heat map for freight and parcel business. I know it's not a very readable slide, but we just wanted to show that this is how we did that. Where there is no gap, we identified those areas also. Then wherever there is a process gap, we highlighted that also. For example, this cost analysis is one of the process gap. If you can see in the first row, this one, yes. So cost analysis is not being done. We don't have as of now, because of the size of Indian Railways, it has always been difficult to do a cost analysis. Activity based costing is yet to be implemented. So this is a process as well as a digital intervention gap. Then scheduled freight and parcel trains are required to be run to provide the SLAs to the customers. So that's where I mean, I can't cover everything because we are short of time now. So this is how we try to identify the process gaps, and wherever the process is available but is still no automation has been done, we covered that also. And for example, if you can see that data driven policy creation in the top row, it is a the process exists to some extent. I mean, they do use the data from external sources, but not in a structured manner because there is no digital system available. Similarly, for performance monitoring, it is all manual as of now. It is being done, but it is all manual. So that's how we looked at it, and we identified the capability heat map. We created that, and we communicated with the stakeholders based on we did all the communications based on Archi models only, so that it can be, it is easy to communicate. So that's how we did. And some of the applications do exist, but they need enhancements. There is a major problem of data correctness also in freight application. So we suggested that it should be also looked at it, that how can we automate the data capturing of wagons, freight cars. So these are some of the gaps. Maybe we can go to the next slide, sir. How much time is left with us? I think we don't have much time.
I think we have about.
If you could wrap up within the next 5 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay.
we can.
So we can,
cover all
I
the
mean, this
slides, yeah.
presentation is anyhow available to all. So these are the some of the applications, target state applications, which we identified, that there should be a structured policy creation and implementation. This should be done because even a rate change in freight, it is still on the manual system. Document is shared with the application team to create that, to enable that rate policy. So that's where we are coming from. So these things have been existing, and we had identified those gaps. And similarly, decentralization of decision making. If there is an automated system, then because railways is a geographically, it's, I mean, pan India level, how to involve everyone in decision making, it's all a manual meeting is called, but that is something which can be avoided if we have a workflow based planning system. So this is where then we had, I mean, integrated freight traffic solution, and customer profiling and segmentation, targeted marketing. These were the gaps which we identified, and we suggested that there should be a digital application to which can cover these. So maybe next slide. So this is our realization of marketing capability, which we told that this capability actually as of now, it doesn't exist. So all the IT systems are required to be developed. And this is how we identify the business services. If at the second level, we can see the business services. And then at the third layer, we have ISS. And and then and the last we are showing that what application should be there which can handle these ISS. So, and then in customer complaints and grievance management, we do have a system which is called Real Mother, which exists. So that's how we have tried to show it to our stakeholders also, that these systems are required to be developed to enable this capability. So maybe so next one, then we can just go through the slides. We can I will. So if I will just like to mention this RFID readers at locations. This is something which we have suggested for automated data capturing, because RFIDs are being put on all the wagons, all the freight cars, but I mean, this was not thought of that operations should also have the readers, so that there is no manual intervention and data should be captured automatically. So this we suggested, and this has been proposed by the railway board also as a work, where then the all data can be captured at locations, at freight locations automatically. So this has been done. Then integration with applications, we have removed many redundant ISSs, and IoT based maintenance also we have suggested, and possible use of blockchain to during the entire freight life cycle we can do, because we are going to multimodal systems. That's it. So I think, sir, then we can go to the challenges in learning, because this is going to take some time. These are the applications which we have suggested. So we can just share our learning in 2 minutes, and then we can.
So these are again for strategic planning, the application components we have put down here. And then application components of other areas, the applications that we have identified here, we have not got into detail, but marketing and customer relationship and trade commercial functions. So these were the applications that we had identified. Reports also, we wanted reports. Then further recommendations also we had given. These are in terms of technology. So these are technology recommendations. And these are the challenges and learnings. I think these you can take.
Yeah. So since as we had been discussing, because of the size and operations of railways, the stakeholders were very difficult here to get the hold of, and to get inputs from them, because and anyhow enterprise architecture did not had any organizational context. I mean, it was not a top driven top sanctioned project. It was sanctioned like any other project. So we had to set the organizational context for the first, which we have been able to. So this took some time. This was our first challenge.
Actually, it was at
And
one
second
point of
challenge
time
was
being treated as an IT project. So since it had come to CRIS, so the management, other people who were not directly connected, thought that it's an IT project. So we had to set the context that no, it is not an IT project. It is more than that. It is an architecture project.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And secondly, the stakeholder changes are very frequent in Indian Railways.
Anyways, thank you very much for a fascinating presentation. Okay, Sharat and Priya. Like I said, I can't even begin to imagine the complexity of that. But I think one of the key points that you raised is digital transformation is not an IT issue. It's a whole of enterprise issue. And enterprise architecture just provides a language that provides for end-to-end implementation of digital transformation within the organization. And Archimate is an architectural modeling language, the only one really in the world. And using open standards, you can basically communicate what you have to do. I know the diagrams appear, are complex, but you've been able to, in a page, describe so much complexity and simplify it that it's really worthwhile for individuals to participate in the EA effort, not just consider EA effort as a networking diagram. And for that. So I'm afraid we don't have any time for questions. What I would very much like to do is thank Sharat and Priya for the presentation. We're going to be getting the, as soon as I get the Zoom, we'll try and post it, but by tomorrow you'll have you'll have a copy of the Zoom recording, and you'll also have a copy of the Zoom recording. You'll also have a copy of the presentation in PDF that'll be made available for you. So thank you very much for taking the time. It's greatly appreciated. And now I would say for everybody is to leave this meeting, and also at the same time that you leave the meeting is please go to the next one. It's going to be by Jay Leibovitz. He's looking at expanding the digital talent pipeline, and that sort of speaks to what this presentation was, that it's a whole, you're not just dealing with the IT side, you've got to change the organization using digital technology. So thank you again for all your efforts. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to, sorry, I'm just going to stop recording. And